So we're standing today on the plaza. Plaza, of course, means a park. It's a public park. There's a bandstand and beautiful trees and fabulous buildings. When you look at these buildings and you compare it to other plazas in the Southwest, it's kind of astonishing. These are much nicer and fancier than anything on the plaza in Taos or even Santa Fe for that matter. So you have to ask yourself, why is this beautiful park and these incredible buildings here in Las Vegas, New Mexico? The answer is pretty simple. Las Vegas was the big city. It was bigger than Albuquerque in the 1880s and richer than Santa Fe. Why is that? Because right behind us, coming to the plaza, is the Santa Fe Trail. So in 1821 was the Mexican Revolution. The Mexicans kicked out the Spaniards and suddenly they allowed trade with the United States, which at that time was just to Missouri. So all the traders from the Midwest came across the Santa Fe Trail from the 1820s until the railroad came here in 1879 and they flooded into Las Vegas. This was the first big city that the merchants came to on the Santa Fe Trail before they got to Santa Fe, and they just decided they'd set up shop here. So Las Vegas was the mercantile capital of the Southwest for about 30 years, from the 1880s to 1910 when the railroad finally went south of Belen. So you can imagine all those wagon trains coming across the western prairies. They dead-ended here in Las Vegas before they went off south to Santa Fe, and many of the merchants set up their main businesses here. That's why all the money in the Southwest was here in Las Vegas. Imagine right in front of us now where that truck's going by, there was a trolley car system here, one of only 3 in the West. There was one in Albuquerque, there was one in Denver, and there was one here in Las Vegas. So there were motorized trolleys, just like you'd see in New York City at the same era, going around the plaza. All the trains in the Southwest came here in 1879, which is when they built these incredible buildings, because the city was going through a huge boom right after the Civil War. And that's when all these millionaires, the first American millionaires, were being minted. And the result of that is Las Vegas has this incredible architectural history. Almost 1,000 buildings on the National Register of Historic Places are here in Las Vegas, which means per capita, there are more historic buildings in Las Vegas than any city in America. It's an astonishing thing to consider. But because all the money went away after the train went south of Albuquerque, the buildings just got mothballed. And the families that had the fortunes that built all these incredible buildings like the Affelds, they moved on to Albuquerque or eventually to Las Vegas, Nevada, or Los Angeles. But the buildings are still here. There hasn't been any money for urban renewal in Las Vegas, so like a lot of places where these great buildings got torn down, they just got abandoned here. So all of these buildings were abandoned through the 1970s when Las Vegas went through kind of a long downturn, and there were a lot of urban problems here and drugs and alcohol addiction and no jobs here. But what's happened in the 1980s is that many of these buildings were purchased by investors. Like these buildings were bought by Wid Slick, a guy from Texas, in the 1980s, and they started this huge renovation project in the downtown. That lasted about 10 years, and then another downturn, and then of course I bought the buildings last year in 2014, and we're starting to go through a real renaissance here in Las Vegas. And the real catalyst for these projects is, of course, the revival of the Plaza Hotel and the Castaneda Hotel, which bookend the historic downtown of Las Vegas. So there's a lot of beautiful architectural detail in both of these buildings. If you look at the Plaza Hotel, originally across the top of the first floor, there was a wrought iron railing, a little balcony there. And all across the front, if you look closely, those are wrought iron columns that were shipped by wagon overland from St. Louis. And there's a plaque on them at the front of the building. You can see where they came from. The whole foundation is stone, and then the whole upper floors are brick and stone again around the backside. Look at that beautiful entablature at the top of the building. It's like a temple, and the beautiful capitals on top of all of the windows. This building was largely restored in 1982 when Wid Slick, a guy from Texas, bought it. And they went through the whole restoration of that building. Now, this is considered one of the finest Victorian buildings in the Southwest, because the 1880s was the height of the Victorian era, which in the United States was the Gilded Era, when they were suddenly minting out the Civil War, all these fabulously wealthy families, like the Romeros and the Affelds, who built these buildings. If you look at the details on the Affeldt building, look at those beautiful medallions over the windows. This is considered the finest Italianate building in the Southwest. And look at the windows on the top floor. They've all got lions' heads on them. Just the detailing here is extraordinary, that they used to make this kind of thing in a little town like Las Vegas where they didn't have foundries, so they had to make everything on the site. They cut the stone, they shipped in the medallions. Look at those incredible stone columns on the first floor here at the Ilfeld building, all carved by stone here in Las Vegas. So to save these buildings, these are some of the most important buildings in the Southwest, most beautiful Victorian and Italian-age buildings, which gives you a sense of how fabulously wealthy Las Vegas was in the late 1800s. Now we're in the lobby of the Plaza Hotel. It's been the lobby for 130 years, since the plaza was built and opened in 1882. Behind me is the Plaza Park, so we would have just come in, maybe ridden our horse into town, through the big glass doors. To the left is the bar, to the right is the dining room. But this room is essentially as it was constructed in 1882. 14-foot Victorian ceilings. And the original pair of walnut staircases. So these wind up 3 floors to all the guest rooms. And these are the original walnut balusters. Above us, behind the front desk, Andrew Mouflon. He's the mascot here, and he wanders around the hotel. So when he's thirsty, he goes to the bar and gets a drink. When he's hungry, he goes in the dining room. When he needs a room, he might come down and check in at the front desk. And sometimes when he wants to see a parade, he goes up on the roof. So he wanders around. Since we had walnut rails, we decided we would build a walnut front desk. So we just built this 20-foot long desk a month ago. Took 8 guys to bring it in from a wood shop just outside of town. Right now we're working on the conservatory. So tomorrow we're going to open this room back up again. But we'll do part of the tour in there. There'll be a chapel in the back and a retail space off to the side and a beautiful glass canopy. That's going to open tomorrow. Down the hall, this goes to the grand ballroom and the public bathrooms, and around the corner there's a hallway. All the walls are covered with headboards from La Fonda Hotel, the great Santa Fe Railroad Hotel in Santa Fe. And this is the other walnut staircase. One of the things that we're trying to do is to tell people the history of the building through the decorations. So we have historic photographs on all the walls. And here you can see a couple of them. This is Teddy Roosevelt, who came to the Castaneda in 1899 and announced his campaign for presidency, because a lot of the Rough Riders came from Las Vegas. But there's also a tremendous film history in Las Vegas. So this, for example, is a picture from No Country for Old Men, the Coen Brothers film. And it was filmed not just in Las Vegas, but right here in this room. So here you see on this staircase, Woody Harrelson going up the stairs, followed by Javier Bardem, and he's getting a little bit nervous. We're now standing in the dining room of the Plaza Hotel. But it wasn't always the dining room. When the hotel was built, there was a wall right here. And typical for hotels at the turn of the 19th century, there would have been retail spaces on the ground floor. So the original dining room was where the bar is now, and here was a jewelry store and a barber shop and various things over the years, with these big picture windows overlooking the plaza. When Wood Slick bought the building in 1982, he converted this to a dining room, took the walls out. Behind me in the corner, going all the way down the length of the building, about 100 feet long, was a huge dance hall. So they put the kitchen back there, put the dining room up here, and these beautiful cast iron columns, they weigh about 800 pounds each. They were made in St. Louis. These were taken out of the dance hall and moved up here into the dining room. So they did a nice job renovating the space in the 1980s, and then nothing for 30 years. When I bought the building, it was a dirty, dark green carpet floor, pressed oak furniture, dark burgundy walls. It was a dark room and not very friendly. There was also a vestibule right where the kitchen door is now, and a door that was about 28 inches wide, so you couldn't have servers going in and out at the same time. So it wasn't very functional. So after we did the bar, this was the next big project, because of course you can see it from the street, and food and beverage is really important. We wanted to have a really first-class dining experience. So we totally renovated this room over the last 6 months, everything from the floors to the ceiling to the furniture. And we wanted to have